Hello my friends, my name is Mina. Welcome to my channel Mina Reads, and today I'm going to be giving you some fall book recommendations. So in the summertime I did do a book recommendation video, and it was kind of like you send in your requests. I try to fulfill them as much as I can, being like your bookish personal shopper, and I am going to be doing that again for the fall. There were a few requests that I wasn't able to get to, so we're going to be fulfilling some of those, and I'm going to be giving you my fall recs. I'm really excited about this rec list. So many of my like all-time favorite books on it, so I'm excited to talk about them with you. Also, all the books will be linked in the description box below for easy access to you, and there'll be affiliate links, so they do help out the channel, but like no pressure. So yeah, let's get into these book recommendations. So the first request that I did end up receiving was for monster / paranormal romance recommendations featuring a black female protagonist, and so I have 3 recommendations that I'm going to leave you with. So the first one is Sweet Vengeance by Viano Onyeomo, and this book is about a girl who has experienced an extreme trauma. She is plotting revenge against the man who has attacked her, and so she's planning to kill him. She wants to figure out a way to kill him and be able to get away with it. So she ends up summoning a demon who can help her kind of get away with murder and help her carry out her revenge quest. And so this is a like monster romance between her and the demon that she summons, and it's very spicy. It's also pretty deep. It gets into some tough topics, but it was really great. I loved it so much. The protagonist is also a bi woman, and I just loved her. She was amazing. She was incredible. Her love interest, the demon, he was cool. They were very funny and fun together, and I feel like the book really balanced like a dark subject matter with also some lightheartedness and some healing, but also bloody revenge, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. So if you're looking for a monster romance, I would definitely recommend that one because his monster form is like pretty wild. Then I want to recommend The Tenant by Katrina Jackson. This is a ghost romance. It's about this guy named Noel. He ends up inheriting a house, and this house is super duper haunted, and it's haunted by this hot ghost named Ruby. And yeah, so this is pretty much about like this like crazy family history, how his family came to own this house, why Ruby is haunting the house, and also kind of this like erotic haunting thing that's happening between Ruby and Noel. And it's very interesting and also cool, and I wanted to recommend it because one, I loved it so much, but also I don't read a lot of books where the woman is kind of like the monster or the mythical, magical, paranormal creature. So I definitely had to recommend this one. It was so good. I loved it so much, and me and Katrina Jackson, we go together like this, so I couldn't pass up the opportunity to recommend you that book. All right, and the final like paranormal romance I'm going to recommend you that has a black female protagonist is by Talia Hibbert. This one's called Mating the Huntress. This is like a werewolf / werewolf hunter romance, and so we have this werewolf guy. He meets this girl at a coffee shop. He has a huge crush on her, and so he asks her out on a date, but unbeknownst to him, she's actually a werewolf hunter, and so she agrees to the date only because she's planning to like take him out after the date. But yeah, like he's so enamored with her, and she even tries to like kill him on their first date, and he's like, oh my god, like she's so cool, she almost killed me. Like their dynamic is crazy, and it's very funny, it's very silly, and it's also really good. So if you're somebody that enjoys like the fated mates trope, you will really like that, and it was a good time. So if you're a paranormal romance girly, I would highly recommend Mating the Huntress. Perfect like spooky season paranormal romance to read. Next prompt that I got was for some standalone fantasy recs, so let's get into those. The first one I would recommend to you is definitely Masters of Death by Olivia Blake. This is a really interesting paranormal fantasy story that is about this guy named Fox Demara, and he is the godson of death, and so he ends up kind of caught in this web of this game that immortals play with each other. It's kind of like a gambling game, and he's sort of caught up in a whole lot of magical immortal mess. And we also see him engaging with his ex-boyfriend, who is like a Norse god, and he has like some stuff and things going on there. There are some other protagonists as well. It's like an ensemble cast. So there's another storyline going on where we have this vampire girl that's a realtor, and she is trying to sell this house, but the house is haunted by this dude, and so she's trying to figure out what this guy's like unfinished business is so he can finally move on from the house. So there are a lot of moving parts in the story. There's a lot of stuff going on, and it's all connected to this magical game that the gods are playing with like these really high stakes, and it's so so good. It's so fascinating. It's kind of has one of those magic systems where everything is a little bit unexplained, but the writing style is gorgeous. The characters are really interesting. The relationships are very interesting. And also there's like a really beautiful familial dynamic in this between Fox and Death. And I love it. So I think if you're looking for something that is a little off kilter and a lot of fun, I would definitely recommend this one. Then we have The Goblin Emperor by Catherine Addison. It's about a young man named Maya, and he ends up inheriting the throne after being like the 7th in line for it. His father and all of his brothers end up dying, so he has this very unexpected rise to the throne as the emperor of his kingdom, and this is about him kind of fumbling his way through that experience. And so this is a really interesting, very intricately built world, and it is a very slow fantasy, a slow political fantasy. So it's really about Maya like reorganizing the government after he becomes the ruler and things like that. So it's not, I don't want to say it's not high stakes. It is high stakes in some ways, but it's not like a war fantasy. It's not like a lot of action, but it's just something about it that I found really like comforting. And it's a very interesting magical world with a great protagonist and a great like side cast of characters. So I really love this book. I would definitely recommend it. There are more books set in this world, but this is a standalone book. So Maya's story is complete within this one volume. So I'd recommend checking it out. So the next standalone fantasy I'm going to recommend you is A Taste of Golden Iron by Alexandra Rowland. This is one of my favorite books of the year. I am obsessed with this book. I am obsessed with these characters, and I'm very obsessed with the world that is set in. So I would recommend checking this one out. This is about this really anxious prince named Kato. He ends up in some political hot water, and so his sister, who is the empress, she decides that he's going to need a new bodyguard who's sort of a stickler for the rules that can kind of keep him on an even keel, because his inner circle was a little bit of a mess. Okay, so he gets this new bodyguard, Evamir, and him and Evamir do not like each other. It is intense dislike to love in this fantasy romance, and so we have this bodyguard romance happening between them, but there's also some stuff going on where there's like some political turmoil and tensions going on within like the royal court, and there is something going on with their economic system where people are like counterfeiting money, and this is a huge act of like heresy in their society because they have a like metal-based magic system. So counterfeit money is like a huge problem, and so the story is sort of about them figuring out what's going on there and some of their other political troubles that they're going through, as well as a really well developed, incredibly well executed romance. I love this book so much, and I highly recommend it. Okay, so I did get a request for some manga recommendations. They said that they read Sweat and Soap on my recommendation and they enjoyed it, so they wanted some more manga recommendations. So the first thing I'm going to recommend you is Sign of Affection by Sue Morishita. This is a really sweet romance manga, and it is about this young girl who's deaf, and she's recently started college, and so this is about her kind of gaining some independence by going off to college and doing her own thing and expanding her friend group and things of that nature. And she ends up meeting this really hot dude. So this is about Yuki and Itsuyomi and their like relationship that blooms because he asks her if she can teach him how to sign. And so this is about like through their sign language lessons how they end up developing a romantic relationship. It is a very sweet, very cute, very wholesome romance, and I really enjoyed it so much. But I also want to recommend more people to read Fangs. Now, Fangs is a vampire romance series. So it's about this dude named N, and N is like a skater. He ends up getting attacked in like this vampire massacre that happens at a club he's at, and so he ends up being taken in by this vampire, and him and the vampire end up being like a bonded pair, and there's some stuff going on there, and it's very fun and sexy and bloody. I really like it. It's like one of my favorite interpretations of vampires like ever in any piece of media, so I would highly recommend checking this out as well. And yeah, so speaking of vampires, I did get a request for some vampires that are not sparkly. They're not like Twilight type vampires, they're more scary. These guys don't sparkle, but like, yeah, they're cool. You should check them out. But now that we're talking about vampires, I think that my 2 vampire book recommendations are going to be Silver Under Nightfall by Ren Chupeco and A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. So A Dowry of Blood is a Dracula retelling from the perspective of his brides, and so this is from the perspective of a bride named Constanza, his first bride, and her experience living with Dracula for centuries. But it is incredibly beautifully written. It's very atmospheric and bloody, and it deals in like trauma and intimate partner violence, so do be careful reading it. But it's a really incredible, very short but very incredible book, and I just love it so much. One of my favorite books of all time. Highly recommend it for all of the spooky vampire vibes. But then we have Silver Under Nightfall by Ren Chupeco, and this is another vampire fantasy that I highly recommend. It's from the perspective of this character named Remy. Remy is like a vampire hunter, and he ends up sort of being courted by the royal vampire couple, and so it's a relationship that's developing between them. But while they're developing this relationship, they're also trying to get to the bottom of this mystery. There is some sort of like contagion that's taking over the vampires in their nation, and we have Remy and his 2 love interests, Xiaodin and Zidane, and they're trying to figure out like what's going on and why. So it's very bloody, it's very action-packed, it has like a really good like moody atmosphere, so I would definitely recommend it for the spooky season. It's like literally the perfect book for it. Okay, so I got this request. It's a pretty long one, but they're saying that they want to read like a workplace romance about 2 people competing for the same promotion or something. Not necessarily enemies to lovers, but they have like a rivalry. And I have the perfect fall book recommendation for you. This one is called Always Practice Safe Hex by Juliet Krall. This is a part of the Stay a Spell series. Anyway, this is a series about the Savoy sisters, and the Savoy sisters are all witches, and each book follows a different sister and her romance. Always Practice Safe Hex is about this girl named Livy who is a witch, and she has entered this competition. It's like a PR campaign competition, and she's entered this competition where she has to work against this guy named Gareth. So Gareth is like a Grim Reaper type creature, and they're trying to see like who has the better idea, and whoever has the better idea will get like funding for their cause and issue that they are like devoted to working on. And so this is them like kind of competing against each other, but also they have to work together, and since they're being forced to work together, they have this like rivalry and a lot of tension, but the tension is very sexual, and they have a good vibe together. They have really great banter. It's really fun, very sweet. I would highly recommend it. And it's just like a really cool supernatural setting, and it's also set in New Orleans, I think, so it really reminded me kind of the originals, the Vampire Diaries energies. I enjoyed it a lot, so I would definitely recommend it. And then I got a request for book recommendations for somebody who really enjoyed Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. They want a soft boy male protagonist who is like really in love with the female protagonist, really devoted to like taking care of her and being good to her and all that. So of course we love a down bad hero in this house, so I have a few recommendations. So one, I just recently read this book and I loved it so much. I am now officially kind of an Ali Hazelwood stan. Never thought I would say those words necessarily, but she did what she needed to do in this book, okay? So we have Love Theoretically. I definitely recommend this if you are a fan of the boy obsessed trope. All of Ali Hazelwood's books pretty much are made for people who are a fan of the boy obsessed trope, because the men are always super duper down bad for the female protagonist, and Jack in this book is no exception. So we have Elsie. She is trying to get a research position at MIT, and Jack ends up being kind of on like the interviewing panel or whatever for this position that she's trying to get. But this is a problem because she actually knows Jack through some questionable circumstances, so she's worried about how that's going to impact her ability to get the job or not. And I know that that may not sound like the sweetest setup for a romance, but they are such a sweet couple, and the the emotional support and understanding that Jack provides to Elsie throughout the course of the novel just was so good. I love seeing Elsie kind of grow as a person, and you can see that Jack is just so like in awe of her, and that's incredible. And I love that. Definitely reminded me of Jacob from yours truly, so I would definitely recommend this one. And I have another book that also has an academic setting that I think could fit this prompt as well. I have Office Hours by Katrina Jackson, the second Katrina Jackson book that I'm recommending in this video. But this book is about two professors at a university who have crushes on each other, and eventually the guy, Alejandro, he decides to make a move on Deja because he has had a crush on her for a very long time. And yeah, so Deja is like this really stressed, really burnt out professor on the tenure track. She's not quite there yet, and so she's just like grinding, doing research, publishing papers, stressed, very overwhelmed. But Alejandro just loves her and is really trying to help take care of her while she's in this really stressful phase of her life. And their relationship is just like a really beautiful bright spot in her life. I love this book so much. I thought it was so good, and I definitely recommend checking out this series because there is another book in it as well called Sabbatical. If you like down bad heroes and you enjoy books that have like a academic slash like professional setting, if you like the whole their coworkers thing that yours truly has going on, I recommend this series. And the final thing that I'm going to recommend you, somebody asked me for a recommendation for a established relationship, second chance romance, something similar to You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hogle. I'm going to recommend you Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. This is a second chance romance about a divorced couple, and they've only been divorced for about a year or so, but they are co-owners in a business, they are co-parents, they see each other very frequently, and this is a story of them like kind of finding their way back to each other. And yeah, like I think if you enjoyed You Deserve Each Other because it's about like a couple rediscovering one another and relearning each other, I think that if you enjoyed that element of You Deserve Each Other, you would enjoy that about Before I Let Go. I really like the established relationship trope. I really like second chance romance trope. So let me know if you have any recommendations for me. I would actually love to hear about them. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope I was able to help you with some fall recommendations. So check out the links in the description below for all of these books. And if you did shop through those links, it would help support the channel and I would appreciate it. But again, no pressure. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I will see you in my next video. Bye you guys. Like, comment, and subscribe. Mwah.